Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Danny, and I'm the event planner for the New York Reactor Space. Before we start, I have a few things to go over. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Useful links will be shared in the chat. The session is recorded and will be available on demand 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Which brings us to today's session. It'll run for approximately 1 hour with time for questions throughout. I will now turn it over to our speaker for introductions.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining this live stream today. My name is Dharni Sundram, and along with me, I have my awesome teammate, Charles Webb, and we both are principal PM leads within the Fabric Data Warehousing team. So come connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, engage with us, share your feedback. We'd be happy to actually engage with the community. So hope you all are actively working on the Fabric and AI Learning Hackathon, and we're excited to be presenting on Supercharging AI with Scalable Data Solutions in Microsoft Fabric Data Warehouse. So Charles, if you can go back to the previous slide. All right. So you know that this live stream is part of the Fabric and AI Learning Hackathon. And with this, you have the opportunity to build a real-world solution in Microsoft Fabric. There are various categories here, and you could win prizes up to $10,000. So the registrations have been open since September 16th. And the submission deadline for the hackathon is next week, November 12th. So if you haven't registered or you'd like to learn more, please do visit this QR code and go to microsoftfabric.devpost.com. And in support of this hackathon, there's been several sessions that have been conducted by various colleagues. And so there's one more tomorrow on how to submit and prepare for Microsoft Ignite 2025. Don't miss this. It's a great session. So hope you tune in tomorrow as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you know, Microsoft Fabric is the unified data platform for the era of AI. So what Fabric really does well is it reduces the pain of the integration and facilitates for better collaboration so that all of the different analytics tools that you actually need for the different data personas in your organization are all available in one suite, in one pane of glass. And very recently, one of our customers mentioned this to me that really resonated so well. And he said we can spend less time building infrastructure and more time focusing on true business value. That is exactly what Fabric does for you. And all these different workloads within Fabric are integrated with AI. They have AI built in. This means AI-powered development, AI-powered data estate, AI-powered insights. This you will see is a common theme across all Fabric workloads. And all of these workloads are seamlessly integrated with one lake, and as a result, it eliminates any data movement, duplication, and so on. And we are also tightly integrated with Purview from a governance perspective, and that story is actually getting tighter and tighter, well integrated every day. So in this session, we are specifically going to focus on the Fabric data warehousing workload and the AI capabilities associated with it. So now let's talk about the Fabric data warehousing engine under the covers, because this is a very critical part of what we've actually built as part of the data warehousing workload. So Fabric data warehouse engine is a relational MPP engine that provides infinite serverless compute. That's right. We combine the best of both serverless and dedicated, if you're familiar with Synapse Gen 2, so that you will get dedicated like awesome performance, while still being, infinitely scalable, like what serverless provides, right? So there is absolutely no physical provisioning or setup required at all. So when a job comes in, we assign compute resources within milliseconds. And as the data volumes or query demands change, we would be able to automatically scale up, and you'd be able to scale back right down after the query execution is completed, and no physical provisioning is needed, like what you had to do in past services. And the data warehouse is based on our world-class SQL Server query optimizer and distributed query processing engine, and as a result gives you petabyte scale performance. And Microsoft Fabric Data Warehouse, just like the other workloads, we embrace the open data format, right? If you're familiar with Gen 2, you know that all the data was in proprietary format. Now we actually write to OneLake, which means there's no vendor lock-in, because we write to OneLake, and all the other engines, all the other compute engines within Fabric can also read the same data. As a result, there is no data duplication, no data movement that is required, right? And that is one of a kind in the industry, which can also provide multi-table transactions. And Fabric Warehouse is tightly integrated with Power BI, data integration, data engineering, all the other workloads that you saw earlier in the previous slide. And all this with the power of like SQL tooling, right? Decades of SQL. And at the core of this is our engine that is AI powered, and that handles bulk of all the complex tasks like workload isolation and management, providing great query performance out of the box, query insights, and much more. So we'll talk about it in greater detail in the next slide. So what are the key capabilities that Fabric Data Warehouse provides? First and foremost, we provide intelligent developer experiences, right? These are simple, intuitive experiences. We'll show that in just a bit. And Charles is going to show this to you in action on how this is AI powered. And next, we offer automatic storage management. And this is to ensure that you have ideal performance, right? If you take an example of data compaction, let's say you create a table. It's physically stored as one or more Parquet files, right? And Parquet files are immutable. So when you perform, let's say DML, you're doing a bunch of inserts and updates, then each of these transactions is going to create new Parquet files. So over time, you could have thousands of Parquet files, like smaller Parquet files. And so data compaction is going to take care of rewriting some of these smaller files into a few larger files, which is going to improve the performance when you're reading a table. Now, similarly, let's say you're deleting a row. You need to handle which rows to ignore and so on. All of that is taken care of you by the engine, and you don't have to worry about it. And this is something that you just get out of the box. We talked about fully serverless and on-demand compute, right? So we scale up and down depending on the data volume and query demands, and that is something that the intelligent resource management automatically handles for you. And as you know, Fabric empowers every business user by making it easy for them to analyze and consume the data for downstream consumption. So for example, it's really easy within Fabric Warehouse to do cross-database queries, between the warehouse and SQL endpoints and so on. And we also tightly integrate with Power BI, irrespective of whether you're trying to use, Direct Lake or Direct Query or import. There is a tighter integration that we actually provide. And it's also easy for data scientists and other data personas to collaborate using notebooks, which we'll talk about in a bit. There's capabilities like sharing a warehouse, which makes it so easy to share, and it's intuitive, just like your office-like experience that you're used to, that you've also seen in Power BI. So we provide an enterprise-ready platform with Fabric, whether it is ensuring that your users are able to connect to Fabric securely through tenant-level private link, or being able to bring in data from data sources that is protected behind secure storage, such as VNet or private endpoint, or for that matter, providing data security using T-SQL, whether it's DDM, RLS, CLS, we've got you covered, right? So we're striving hard every day. You can actually see more enterprise features that actually land in Fabric. So this is a very important priority for us. And last but not the least, we provide you self-managed performance for scale. This is the best query performance without any tuning needed. And this is achieved through automatic workload grouping and isolation. There's V-ordering that we offer for really good performance with all other Fabric workloads, and many such performance improvements that we've been shipping every day. Yeah, a lot of you from this community, you have engaged with us, from the Power BI days, and you've seen this journey now repeat with Fabric, right? This is how rapidly we are innovating with Fabric, how we've been meticulously releasing new features every single week. And you've seen our blog updates every month. We also publish what's coming as part of our Fabric roadmap, so you have that visibility. Your feedback is really, really critical for us to evolve this product continuously. So keep them coming. Go visit ideas.fabric.microsoft.com to share your feedback. For those of you who've been active in upvoting ideas and sharing your feedback, a huge thank you to the community for what you've been doing. Thank you so much. Okay, so what's really awesome about our Fabric Warehouse is that it's built for any skilled developer, right? And it makes it super easy for all the different data personas to use this. So whether you're a data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, business user, Fabric Warehouse provides a really great experience for anyone to use. And for SQL or no-code developers, Charles, if you can advance to the next slide, we have multiple easy options that's available for you to start bringing in your data, right? So the first step you want to, when you create a warehouse, is start to actually bring in the data. So if you're used to T-SQL, you can use the same T-SQL surface area to bring in the data, such as copy into, insert select, CTAS, and so on, right? Or let's say you love Azure Data Factory. You have the Data Factory pipelines that can actually continue to help you with your ETL pipelines. You can use your copy activity there, and you'd be able to actually continue using Data Factory pipelines. Or let's say you fall under the no-code ETL part of the spectrum. You love Power Query. You've been using that in Power BI and Excel and other tools that it's been integrated in. You can use the same familiar Power Query experience in Data Flows Gen 2 and use no-code ETL for your data prep and data transformations. Or if, let's say, you've already ingested data into Lakehouse and you've actually done the transformation and cleansing there, then you can start querying your shortcuts using your SQL endpoint. So that is also available as a zero ETL option.
Dorini, what if a customer has their data in something like Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage?
Well, absolutely, Charles. So we have shortcuts to external sources as well, which makes it super easy for you to go and create a shortcut, irrespective of whether it's in S3 or BigQuery or other cloud services, and you would be able to look at the data within Fabric as if it was right here, and it just creates a pointer to that.
Okay. And then what if a customer even has data in, say, a relational database like Azure SQL? Can they get at their data?
We've got the famous mirroring capabilities that you can actually use to go and bring in the data and start to ensure that for your transactional systems, you now have this pipe through which continuously data is being piped to your analytics systems as well, and it creates a SQL analytics endpoint.
Love it.
And Charles, like in addition to these experiences, there's also like pro-code developer experiences that we have built in within the editor. This of all people, and we also provide you the ability to have experiences that are catered to both pro-code and no-code developers.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So within the data warehouse editor, you've got experiences to explore your data where it's a drag and drop interface and you can sort and filter just like you might in Excel. You can also develop queries using a drag and drop kind of WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get experience. And you can build these queries if you don't have the superpowers of writing SQL. And then lastly, you can model your data. And you get a entity relationship diagram where you can define your facts, your dimensions, and you can help other people understand what the warehouse data actually means. And at the same time, you can always manage security, govern this, monitor queries, and then optimize performance from a single pane of glass in the web. Now, when it comes to developing queries, right, you kind of talked about no code or pro code, but maybe you can talk a little bit about how this helps anyone of any skill set, Dharini, work better with data warehousing.
Yeah, absolutely, Charles. So the no-code option here allows you to use, again, familiar Power Query experiences. Those who've used Power Query, the visual experience, the diagram view to go and now do clicky, draggy, droppy, and write a few queries within that experience here as a visual query. Or you also have the option to use your SQL query editor if you want to continue to use T-SQL and write your queries for pro-code developers. In addition to this, I also want to call out, we still provide support for all the client tools. You have the TDS endpoint. So irrespective of whether you use SSMS or, Azure Data Studio or other client tools, you can continue to use the same if that is your tool of choice. And there are also, experiences that we provide for developers that allow you to use REST APIs for automation. And we have CI/CD that is built into our Fabric platform. You can use Git integration for source control and collaborating with other developers. You can use deployment pipelines for continuous deployment. You can also import, export the SQL database projects and much more.
I love it. I love it. So question for you, Dharini. If I want to use something like Visual Studio and VS Code, and then I also want to use things like GitHub Copilot, I have my own configuration, can I do that?
Absolutely. We want you to embrace like any tool that you actually prefer. We're providing the experiences for both ends of the spectrum, but we totally understand that everyone has their own favorite tool. And so we ensure that there's connectivity that can be established to our endpoints from whatever tool that you'd love to use.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm sure this audience would love to kind of see this live. So you mind giving a quick tour of what the experience looks like?
Absolutely. So if you switch to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So on this one, I just want to show our new improvements in our editor for our developers that we've actually built within the warehouse editor and SQL endpoint experiences. So just want to make sure that it's still playing, Charles. Okay. All right. So you can see here, starting with the ribbon, we basically have consolidated all the dev tools that are needed into home and reporting tabs. And the home tab includes all the end-to-end developer experience, whether you're trying to ingest data, and then once you've ingested the data, now you can start to actually write your queries. We just talked about the visual query, SQL query, all that's available here. You have templates that's available. You are able to use the query activity to actually monitor your experience as an entry point for the modeling experiences as well. And you can use the import-export SQL project experience that I talked about earlier. So you also have a reporting tab here, and that provides all the tools related to modeling. Whether it's creating a new report or creating, managing, updating the semantic model, it's all covered there. And we also have a new data grid in the data preview that you're actually seeing. We use the same data grid when we are surfacing results as well. And here, there are some capabilities that we've added at the column level, right? And so at the column level, you'd be able to go and sort it ascending or descending without having to write a query, or you can also go and filter by values as well. And there are many more features that are continuing to actually improve in this area to make it simpler. The next one that I want to showcase is the improved experience of multitasking, right? Like the dynamic tabs that we now provide. So you have a tab for data preview, a tab for modeling, a tab for query, and so on. And in the previous editor, you could only focus on one of these at a time, but we got your feedback. We understand there are scenarios where you would want to, kind of mix and match, where you want to actually look at multiple of these views at the same time. So let's say you want to look at the relationships and you want to better structure a query. Now it's possible, right? And the other aspect of multitasking is also how the navigation between, let's say, warehouse and SQL endpoint and other artifacts work now from a multitasking perspective. So with this, no matter what tab you're on, it'll persist your last activity, which is super seamless from a productivity standpoint. Last but not the least, I want to show you that based on your feedback, we are also able to performantly scale now. And you can see here in this demo, we've got up to like 20,000 tables listed, and I can just go scroll through that you're able to see that it comes in really handy, especially when you have a lot of tables and you're actually working within the editor experience.
Wow, this is great. This is awesome. And there's no like catalog you need to configure, any cloud infrastructure you need to set up to get access to this, right?
Nope, absolutely not. It's all available out of the box. And when you create a warehouse, it just takes like seconds, compared to the times that you would take if you were to provision this in PaaS and then wait for it to be set up.
I love it. I love it. So question for you here. We have a lot of developers on the call, and you've talked about our seamless web experience, which caters to any skill level individual, whether you're an analyst, a business professional, or a SQL developer. But we know that some developers like to use experiences like notebooks. Can you talk a little bit about how we're making sure those experiences are also?
Absolutely, Charles. I know you were going to ask this. So editor experiences are great for citizen developers, but there are lots of notebook fans out there, right? So let's talk about notebooks. So we're extremely excited to announce that T-SQL notebooks are now available in public preview. So if you haven't checked out yet, please do go play with it. It was recently announced in FabCon Europe. So we all know notebooks, provide this great, rich Markdown support. Now you can combine your SQL queries along with the Markdown, your documentation, your storytelling, all of that is in one place. It can easily weave into a good narrative that's so easy for anyone to understand, right? When you share a notebook, you know what analysis has been done. And notebooks makes it so easy to do your interactive data exploration, right? You quickly start exploring the data, you make sense of the data, you can execute the individual cells, see the results real time. It's just awesome. And in fact, the built-in visuals really help with that too, right? So as you run a code cell, they automatically generate those default visuals. We'll talk about it in just a bit, and they can be customized to answer, your business questions that you have. And with SQL notebooks, now we are, enabling data engineers, analysts, SQL developers, all of these different data personas to actually use their favorite tool of choice and can collaborate and share and increase that engagement among these personas that they can actually work together. So with that, let's actually see the same in action.
Love it. Let's see it.
All right. So for this particular demo, I have already created a warehouse, and I've ingested data into the warehouse, as you can see, and I want to start querying the data, right? Typically, I would go to the new SQL query experience and start writing my SQL queries there. But for this demo, let's actually go and use this new entry point to go and start creating queries in the notebook. So, Chels, can you play it, or is it playing? All right, okay, so let's get started with that entry point that I was just talking about. So once I click that entry point, you can see it created a new notebook, and it's also able to maintain that context and carry that warehouse context into this notebook. So on the left, you can see the Object Explorer. You can see all the objects there. You can see that pin icon there. That basically indicates that it's the primary warehouse. And so all, this is where all the queries are being run, and this is the connection that we are using. In the top, you can actually see that the default language is T-SQL, right? That's the whole point. We want to bring notebooks to all our SQL developers. You can start exploring this. You see a template that I was just using to actually go run this particular query. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to switch to a notebook that already has these queries so we can go through them, right? So here you can actually see the notebook experience allows me to see for each cell, what is the language of choice that we've used. You can see I can use my IntelliSense here as well within the code cells. You can also see that as part of the messages tab, I can see the distributed statement ID. I can see the column profiling information as well that tells me, okay, what is the min, what is the max, what's missing. It gives me an idea of the invalid values and so on. So I can start to plot charts. This is the default visual I was talking about, and I can customize that too, right? So just choose a few fields, and I can see each city's performance now. And I have seen that typically a lot of the analysts are interested in a specific query that ends up being a view. So I just have to click a button, and then I just have to specify what is the name of the view, and voila, right? It created the view for downstream consumption. Now, what if I wanted to save the query results as a table? I can do that using the Save as Table option. And here again, all I have to is just specify the table name. And you can see there that I'm just loading results using that CTAS command that it just generated. So I can also download my query results now. I can download the visuals as well here. You can see. And for my next analysis, I want to do cross-database queries. So adding an additional warehouse or SQL endpoint is so easy. You just have to click that button, and you saw that I was able to choose that, and it got added to the same Object Explorer. And now all I have to do is to actually start writing my cross-database queries using three-part naming, and that's it. It's that easy. So now that my analysis is done, I want to ask another developer to verify my analysis that's done. It's just as easy as adding a comment that you do on Word documents, right? It's simple to use, just like Office. And eventually, let's say this has all been verified, validated, and I want to share this to other users. I can do that too. All I have to is just specify who I want to share, which group or user, and specify the permissions. And now I can separate the code from the data, and I would be able to actually share that notebook for others to query, others to use the same for analysis as well. So in summary, we saw how SQL developers can now take advantage of the power of notebooks in order to go do your analysis, visualize, collaborate, and share. So we're super excited about this feature.
Love it. Love it. My favorite feature about this is really that anyone can use this, and no matter who creates it, it can be shared. And then it's kind of like telling a story. You can kind of follow that story from the beginning to the end. So this is a really neat feature.
Absolutely, Charles. We want you guys to actually provide your feedback and ideas so we can bring this to GA. So keep them coming. I know, we talked about the developer experiences and how intuitive and simple they are. We talked about notebooks. But what about the AI-powered experiences that everybody is waiting for? So Charles, take it over.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about AI experiences inside of Fabric. We call these co-pilots. And specifically, we have co-pilot experiences for the Fabric data warehousing capabilities. And these are really tailored to, as Darnie mentioned, everyone. So whether you're a SQL developer or an analyst or a citizen developer or a business user, Copilot can help you take advantage of the data warehouse and make the most of that investment. What we really try to do here is help with all the different types of data warehousing tasks. So everything from generating SQL and validating that SQL query will work and giving you instructions for what it's going to do and explaining how it might work, to quick actions to help you fix code or explain code or optimize code, and then just simple Q&A to help you understand best practices or how you might go about something. The Copilot is really your paired programmer. Just go ahead and see what that looks like in action. So we're inside of the data warehousing experience. You can see that we always start you with several different cards in the viewport. You also will always have a Copilot button in the ribbon. And this Copilot button in the ribbon is your affordance across of all the different experiences you might have already be using in things like Office. And in Fabric, that's no different. So if you click on that Copilot button, in addition to having all the things that you have on the left-hand side with the OE, the viewport to get started, you can also just get started by asking questions directly from this experience. And so you can already do things like quick commands to generate and create a table. And once you've generated that SQL code, you could easily insert that into the editor. So you can verify and validate that. And doing so will show you not only the code, but a step-by-step. This is part of our investments in just making sure that any AI that we leverage is responsible. So this gives you the power now to understand how you might write code and then run it yourself once you're ready. Now, the best part about these experiences is just really the beginning. So once you started to build your data warehouse, you can continue using the chat experiences, but you can also use other modalities. So now let's say that I'm writing code and I'm in the SQL text editor and I've got some code, right? The best part about this is that after I've generated it and I've now inserted additional rows into my table and I've updated the code, I can continue to use the chat simultaneously with the SQL text editor. And I can get advice on how I can load data and best practices. So we've gone from generating code to getting advice to using the SQL text editor and having completions to now things like going a step further. So now we're in the SQL text editor again, right? And now we can use the GitHub Copilot style completions to start writing code. And you can see once I've indicated my general intent with a comment, AI is able to simply complete the rest of that pattern across all the different objects you need to load into your data warehouse, which is super powerful. So from a developer perspective, you can see how you can use it for chat, you can use it for actually writing code. And if you don't know how to write code, how we can supercharge those experiences. And now you can see in that data grid, all that data is actually loaded and you can validate it there. Now, if you continue working and moving forward, you can also use the AI and the Copilot experiences to brainstorm potential questions. So if you're building this data warehouse out for other people, you might want to make sure that this data warehouse is truly useful. And AI can help you in terms of making sure that you can get valuable insights. And you can test and validate these questions. You can ask them. You can continue to fine tune and develop and model your warehouse appropriately. And you can see the code that might get generated and really validate that, okay, the data warehouse is truly helpful and insightful. I know many folks use data warehouses today where these are big monoliths, but they're not really built in a way that business users downstream and analysts downstream can really leverage them for any insights. So this helps you stay on the rails in terms of making sure that the warehouse is truly useful. Now, at some point, developers write code and it won't be perfect. And in those cases where it's not completely perfect or there are errors, you can use Copilot to simply fix query errors right in line. And my favorite thing about this is it will not only fix, but it will tell you why it's making that fix. And then you can continue to validate those things. And then when you're working in teams, there's often scenarios where you might have inherited code or you're looking at a teammate's code. And being able to use the capability to simply explain how this works helps make sure that you follow best practices in terms of like commenting your code and understanding what it all means. But it also helps with those real world team scenarios where you're working with code that other people have written. And so this is really just a taste of some of the Copilot experiences that exist inside of the data warehouse. And this is really just the surface level. We'll show you not only can you write code, but using the Copilots across all of Fabric, you can build something really end-to-end that's super powerful. Let's see what that looks like.
This is so cool, Charles. So I mean, I can go and actually get help from Copilot to write a query or fix errors, or for that matter, ask for help or document my query. What else can Copilot not do? This is just so awesome. Now all citizen developers can actually, use this as a way to even learn SQL, or in some cases, just get direct help from Copilot to answer their questions without having to write code. This is awesome.
Yep, and this is just the beginning. So it's not just about writing code, right? This assistive technology is also there to help you get your data ready. It's also there to help you organize, model, and secure and query your data, like I just showed you. And then lastly, because Fabric is an end-to-end integrated suite when it comes to doing Power BI reporting, your clicky, draggy, droppy you mentioned earlier, and getting those visualizations, because picture's worth 1,000 words. You can do all of this with Copilot experiences as well. And let me show you just now what that looks like.
Hey, Charles, I have a question. So if I want to have in T-SQL surface area, sometimes there's changes that I have to make, compared to Gen 2 versus Fabric Warehouse. So how do I actually learn whether, SQL surface area is supported or not? Is that something that Copilot can help me?
Absolutely. Not only will it only suggest code that will run 100% of the time, but it will also help you with what areas of the surface in SQL are supported specifically in Fabric. And as we continue to add more functionality, as we continue to ship every day and new things come online that are net new and super innovative, the Copilot will be aware of that and help you take advantage of those capabilities.
At this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that Copilot just migrated my Gen 2 dedicated SQL pool to Fabric Warehouse.
So I'm going to leave that alone because we have a roadmap and we can always talk about those types of features a little bit later, maybe in a future hackathon. But I do want to show you what using these AI Copilot experiences might look like going end to end. So we're in a warehouse right now, and we just clicked on one of those cards to get started. This is a blank warehouse. And you can start to see I'm now using the Dataflow Gen 2 experience that's seamlessly integrated. And my favorite thing about the Dataflow Gen 2 experience is this is an experience where I can look at the data and see it as I transform it. Now, at some point, I might say I want, and I know exactly what I want to do, but the Dataflow Gen 2 experience has a lot of functionality. I want to just ask, a Sherpa to make these transformations for me and then continue to validate them in kind of a natural language experience. And what I'm able to do here is simply talk with the Copilot inside of Dataflow Gen 2. Right, that's connected to the data warehouse, and achieve my objectives of doing data transformations. So if we take a close look at what we're doing here, we're transforming data very quickly. We are viewing that data and validating that those changes are correct. And I can continue to add multi-step transformations and just have Copilot apply those for me, which is a huge time saver. Even though, we have an experience where you can click and point and make transformations, the ability to kind of do that from natural language saves clicks and helps developers be more productive. Now, once we've landed back in the data warehouse, we've loaded that data using Copilot, we can also continue to query and work with that data using Copilot again. So we showed you that brainstorm capability, but now you can see how that brainstorm capability, kind of putting these pieces together, can now be used to build the data warehouse and make sure that the questions that I might think I can answer, I truly can answer. And so as I continue to develop, optimize, and model my warehouse, these kind of capabilities will help any user trying to answer business questions truly answer them. And it helps you understand, hey, what is the schema? What is the design of this data warehouse really eliciting from a affordance standpoint? So the user experience here can really be kept with amazing guardrails in terms of delighting your downstream analysts, business users, et cetera. Now, the cool thing about the brainstorm capability is it will look across all of your data, and it will look across your schema, and it'll take what it knows about not only your data warehouse and data warehouse best practices in Fabric, but also its general knowledge of the world and the internet as being a generative AI capability. And so securely, what this will do is it will suggest questions and scenarios that make sense. And then again, you can take advantage of making sure that the experiences that you serve are relevant and serve the right answers. Now, at some point, you're going to say, you know what? I know people downstream need Power BI reporting capabilities. And because all of this is also seamlessly built in one click, we can select the objects that are relevant, and we can continue to use Copilot now in Power BI to power additional clicky, draggy, droppy visual experiences. So we went from a table of data, SQL queries, and things that we generated from flat files that we loaded, to now a Power BI report that can be built also with this assistive generative technology in seconds. And what's really powerful about this is when we think about democratizing analytics experiences for everyone, we went through several modalities of data preparation and developing in SQL and modeling data, and then finally creating data visualizations. And typically, as a developer, you put on multiple hats. And now you have a stylist that's helping you put on all these different hats and making sure that you're ready to go, no matter what part of the analytics process that you're trying to develop and serve end users with. And this is just super powerful when you think about what a real world day in the life is for any developer and any person of any skill set.
This is so awesome. Being able to actually do this development where you can now create awesome Power BI reports, the analysis services models, but then not have to worry about DAX, or for that matter, advanced functionality in Power Query, but not having to worry about M. This is just fantastic.
Yep, it's one of my favorite features for sure. Now, we talked about Copilot experiences, and that's really awesome for developers. When it comes to building AI experiences on top of your data warehouse, what you can do now that's super powerful is take the AI and that generative technology and actually serve consumption experiences for business users where they don't need to necessarily know the details of a data warehouse. They just have a trusted system they can get insights from. And this is a natural language kind of, I ask an expert within my organization a question and I get a trusted certified answer. So let's talk about what that experience looks like. Within the AI skill capability, what I'm able to do is simply select a data source, right? So my data warehouse, I can also select numerous other sources, lake houses, and based on that SQL data, we honor also any user's permissions, and we can select tables. Now, after selecting those tables, what we can do is add additional instructions to make sure that we steer the AI towards answers that make sense. Think about having that intelligent Sherpa who understands your business context and understands definitions of terms. And what we can do there is simply provide an experience where you can ask questions and get answers. And we can kind of tailor this experience, give it a few shot examples to make sure that that experience is delightful and you get the right answers. Now, after you've provided a few examples and you configure this AI skill to answer questions as you would expect, right? You can give it access to question and query pairs just to make sure that you can really certify and validate that the questions that you ask will elicit real world, intelligent, and correct, more importantly, answers. Now, what I like about this functionality is that development experience is super seamless. You essentially select your data, ask a few questions, validate that those questions are giving you the right answers, and then you can start to unlock this power within your business. So the next step is you can say, you know what, I built this AI skill, I've given it a reasonable name, and now I can publish it, test it out, and really validate that it'll be ready for showtime. And then you have insights on how it's performing. But my favorite part is I can now share it. So with Dharini, my colleague, as well as other people within my team, my organization, I can securely share this AI skill. And this is going to allow others to just interact with it like they would with, typing in a question into ChatGPT or Google or Bing or whatever your search engine might be. And the best part about this is it's not just, a list of different results. You're going to get an actual answer for the question that you asked. And so what this really looks like is now that I've shared this experience, if someone's coming to this AI skill, they're going to see the name of it. I can just ask a question of my data and I can simply get an answer. And we take care of the security that's already set in the data warehouse for you so that everything just flows downstream so you get a natural language answer.
Charles, I have a fundamental question. So you just showed Copilot in the previous demo. So if I already have Copilot and I can ask questions to the Copilot, why do I need an AI skill?
Yeah, totally. So the Copilot is made for developing, building, and using the warehouse and the warehouse user experience. But there are some scenarios where maybe someone in finance or someone in sales or downstream applications need to get a question from the data warehouse and get an answer back really quickly in a seamless, simple experience. And so you can think about these two modalities as one, the Copilot serving a developer, and we talked about how it could be a developer of any skill set. And you can think about the AI skill as a Q&A experience to serve any kind of question answer pair modality, basically natural language experience for a downstream user. So they should be used really complementary from a end-to-end scenario perspective. You build a data warehouse, you use the assistive technologies of Copilot, and then you serve using not only the data warehouse for those who have the maturity of using the data warehousing capabilities, where you want to give access to the full fidelity SQL editor, but also for those scenarios where people don't know SQL. They don't necessarily need to know SQL when you have downstream apps or scenarios where people just want to ask a question and get an answer.
Got it. Okay, so I should think of Copilot as like a pair programmer that's actually there to help me as I do my development. But the AI skill is something that helps leverage all the business context, the subject matter expertise that needs to be added to it in order for answering your business questions.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And what we see is customers use them both in really complementary ways, because within an organization, when we say that data warehousing capabilities are for everyone, we know people have different skill sets. We want to meet people where they are. So these two companions are really twins if you think about it. And it's super powerful in terms of unlocking AI within a business and mobilizing those insights so that people can make decisions with insights instead of just opinion.
This is so awesome. This is going to, fuel a lot of interesting business cases where it's truly going to democratize data to a lot of folks who don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to actually go and write code or do that analysis today, but really need that to make their decisions on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And what I like about this is it's not just for people who don't write code. There's also endless possibilities with things like being able to use the AI skill programmatically. So if I have a notebook, for example, I can build those Q&A and storytelling experiences that Darini showed you earlier, mashed up with this AI skill capability. So you get really, really comprehensive insights and experiences with data that are super immersive. And so you can query that AI skill, you can enrich it with adding custom solutions with code, and really the possibilities are endless with Microsoft Fabric, AI skill, and the data warehouse. Lastly, when you think about using copilots, the really awesome thing about generative AI and what Microsoft is doing is we're taking generative AI and making it available for everyone. So imagine I have a copilot that I've created internally within my business and my needs, and I can also take certified answers and results from, say, an AI skill coming from my data warehouse, and make sure that the copilot I build can answer a number of questions from a number of different domains and can really serve a deep business value scenario in a magical way. And this is something that traditionally would have taken months to years. And if you asked it a question that wasn't exactly in the wheelhouse, you wouldn't have gotten a really great experience. With generative AI and Microsoft Fabric, we're putting all of this together so that if you're using copilots, Copilot Studio, Microsoft Fabric, it's all seamless, nothing to install, it's all integrated. And my favorite part is it just works.
This is so awesome. Can we see it in action?
So you can. What I would say is you can go try all the things that we just showed you today using Microsoft Fabric. You can spin up a free trial. You can use your Power BI premium subscriptions. You can also use a Fabric capacity as well to get started. And to me, that's the easiest way to kind of prove this technology out. I always say, don't believe it, go try it, go see it for yourself and make it real. And what we've shown you today, all these different experiences can be done in seconds to minutes. And that's super powerful. There's no other platform out there that gives you that kind of control, power, and accessibility for anyone within your organization.
This is so cool, Charles. I think it's the perfect one to go and build your own project for this Fabric and AI learning hackathon and get Christmas presents with all the prizes that you are going to get.
Absolutely. Yeah, with the holiday season coming up soon, there's a lot of opportunity to win some really awesome goodies for Christmas and any other holidays that you might celebrate. So definitely encourage anyone watching this today to get inspired. Think about opportunities where you can deliver new insights, a new value, a new innovation, not only within your organizations, but in your day-to-day life. And think about Microsoft Fabric, right? These capabilities and these tools as a way to liberate your data and help you achieve more with data.
There's a great question on chat. Will they be able to use Copilot in AI skills with an F2?
Yeah, not today. Today, you need a Fabric F64 license or a premium capacity P1 license. But we are looking at expanding that reach. And so stay tuned to not only our blog, but also big announcements and conferences that we have coming up. For example, we happen to have a conference coming up in just a few short weeks where we'll have more announcements on AI skill, Fabric capacities and licensing. So stay tuned.
That's awesome. Thank you, Charles. I just noticed there's another question as well, where someone's, Jeffrey Hyperank has raised this question on whether data warehouse refers to both lakehouse and data warehouse. So when we talk about data warehouse, we're talking about data warehouse and the SQL endpoint that gets automatically generated when you create a lakehouse. Well, the difference is the SQL endpoint is queryable, so you won't be able to actually do any inserts or updates or multi-table transactions like you would be able to do with the data warehouse. But when we talk about the workload overall, because it's the same underlying SQL compute engine, we do refer to data warehouse and the SQL analytics endpoint. Like all the features that you saw today would be available for these two. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Charles, and thank you all for engaging with us today. Really, really appreciate it, and looking forward to hearing your feedback and continuing to see your upvotes and ideas and going from there. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.